For my first magic trick, I'm going to move a comma. You've heard it said, but I say unto you which hear, love your enemies, do good to those which hate you. I'm going to wave my magic wand and move a comma one word to the right. And that same scripture now reads quite differently. It says, but I speak unto those of you who understand love. Your enemies do good to those who hate you. They bless those that curse you and abuse you. They smite you on one side of the face while ministering to the other. So we find that Jesus is not giving us a gospel of self-sacrifice and subjugation, but rather a biblical roadmap that clearly and unmistakably identifies our enemies and teaches us to judge the judge. This parable is located in Luke 6. It consists of 5 metaphors that represent 5 parables. The first one is the parable of sand. In this parable, Jesus teaches us not to build our house upon the sand. Sand is a metaphor for the sons of Abraham, who throughout the Bible are referred to as the sands of the sea. It's also a clever play on words. There's a city in the Old Testament called Tanakh, which means sand. But Tanakh is also an acronym used to identify the 3 bodies of Hebrew scripture known as the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. Now, Jesus ends this parable with a reference to Noah and the flood and informs us that those who got washed away in the flood were those who built their houses on the foundation of Abraham and his sons. 2, the parable of the beam. This is a parable of Levi and Simeon. In this parable, Jesus asks the question, can the blind lead the blind? How can you judge your brother when you have a beam in your eye? He's not telling you not to judge. He's telling you who's not allowed to judge you. He's telling you who is not qualified to judge anyone or anything at any time. The word beam here is dokos, and it means a stick of timber, a plank, a log, or a tree. It's a specific reference to a Torah scroll, which is a long piece of parchment rolled from either end on 2 pieces of timber called trees of life. Now, Ezekiel 37 describes the Torah scrolls like this. Take 1 stick for Ephraim and the other stick for Judah, and they shall become 1 stick in your hand. And the stick of the writings shall be in your hand and in your eye. Well, here's a stick in your eye, right? The beam in your eye, the stick, log, tree in your eye that blinds you and disqualifies you from judging is a Torah scroll. How can this be? Levi is the author of Torah, and the patriarch Jacob, his father, said this about Levi. Simeon and Levi are twins, 2 who are 1. Their habitations are vessels of Hamas, violence and terror. O my soul, come not into their secret assembly. Mine honor, be not thou united. For they assemble the enraged and slaughter men for pleasure. They break down the walls of resistance. Cursed is their rage, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is sadistic. Torah is the work of Levi and Simeon. Violent and sadistic men according to their own father, who are by definition unjust. Therefore, Torah itself is an unjust measure. Number 3 is the parable of the thorns. In the parable of the thorns, Jesus warns us that the fruit of the kingdom cannot come from thorns. This is a direct reference to the acacia tree that produces thorns up to 10 inches long. Now, the Ark of the Covenant that Moses built, the temple that Moses built, the altar of sacrifice, the altar of incense, were all built out of acacia wood. They're covered in thorns. Moses was a Levite, and his entire operation was built out of thorns and thistles. If the tree is evil, its fruit is evil. Can't get good fruit from a thorn bush. Number 4 is the parable of the blind guide. This is a parable about Samson. Now, Samson killed a lion, and he returned later to find a swarm of bees and honey in the dead carcass of the lion he had slain. And he spoke this parable. He said, out of the devourer came fruit. Out of fierceness came sweetness. Now, this is a metaphor for Levi and Simeon, the two who are one. Levi is the fierce devourer. Simeon is the beautiful fruit that speaks the kind and soothing words of peace and tolerance and inclusion that lulls you to sleep and breaks down the wall of your resistance so your enemy can enter unobstructed. Now, Simeon and Levi are two sticks on one scroll, one beam, and they have one goal. But very different, in fact, exactly opposite jobs. Samson ate the honey and was subsequently blinded in both eyes and taken captive. Numbers 16:4 says, it's a complaint to Moses by his followers. They're complaining. Sorry. It says, you have not brought us into the lands flooded with those who suck the honey, nor have you given us our inheritance of their vineyards and their fields. We have put out the eyes of these people and blinded them to our intentions. They will not rise up against us. So the honey are the sweet words that subdue you, assure you, placate you, so that you will not rise up against your enemy, the lion. Number 5 is the parable of blessing the curse. It's a parable of Balaam. It's also known as the parable of the wolf in sheep's clothing. When Moses and his followers left Egypt, they waged jihad on the lands of Canaan, and they camped outside of Midian. The king of Midian was Balak, and he was the son of Zipporah, who was Moses' ex-wife. Now, Zipporah divorced Moses when he committed sadistic acts of cruelty against her children. She called him a bloody husband and fled from Moses with her children into the wilderness of Canaan. So King Balak was aware of the evil character of the Levites and their barbaric laws. So when they came and camped outside of Midian, Balak was rightfully afraid of them and deeply distressed because he understood that their entire assembly was built upon a foundation of violence and cruelty to women and children. Now, there was a faction of people in Midian who worshiped Baal and built altars and sacrificed to Baal, just like the Levites did. These were Simeonites, the twin of Levi, wolves in sheep's clothing. The Simeonites called themselves the Church of Balaam. King Balak called upon the Church of Balaam for help in defeating the cursed Levites who were on a homicidal spree through the entire land of Canaan. But the Church of Balaam proclaimed the Levites blessed of God. They blessed the Levites and refused to call them a curse. And since this was a caste system, King Balak was under the authority of Balaam, the priest. So Balaam, the false prophet, and his church betrayed the king into the hands of the enemy. They betrayed their nation, their family, and got everybody killed because they blessed those who were a curse. They called evil good and good evil, and they called light darkness and darkness light, and they could not tell the difference between the two. Now, when the Pharisees judged good and evil, they judged it according to what was written in Torah. Jesus judged Torah according to what was written in his heart. He judged the judge, which is Torah. It's that book. It's the judge. And Jesus' judgment was just. Jesus said, if you don't judge wickedness, there will be no judgment. If you don't condemn unrighteousness, there will be no condemnation, because the wicked aren't going to condemn themselves. If you keep excusing depravity, it will just be excused. What is depraved? Blessing and praising the one who is cursing you. For a list of all the hexes and spells the Levites have cursed you with, please see Deuteronomy 28. And remember, those who praise and bless the one who curses you are your enemies. Go and judge just judgment.